Hi, Eileen. How are you?
I'm well. Good morning, Dean Matthew.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Let people know a secret. We chatted a bit before we hit record on the video. So what you all don't know, but Eileen knows, is I cycled to church today, and I am trying not to die. But there we go. Lots of water being consumed. Um, but how are you, Eileen?
Good. I have been walking myself, getting back, trying to work back up to my previous levels, and enjoying the cool morning air at 6:30 in the morning, and it just good.
I like getting out that time in the morning as well. I did 3 miles with the river this morning, with my walking running app. It told me it was a walking app. And then every so often it like says, for the next bit, you might want to speed up. You might want to run. It just like drops it in there. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I'm a bit, oh, chesty, just catching up with myself. Anyway, we have got this gospel. It's a doozy. Great for the beginning of the Welcome Back campaign. Let's share screen and have a look. So I'm just getting you where I can see you, Eileen, because it's nice to be able to
Okay.
see. And why don't we split it in two? You go first, then I'll go second.
Oh, okay. Could you make it just a little bit bigger, please?
I'm gonna try.
Thank you.
Uh,
There we go.
oh, did that work better?
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Right. Okay, go ahead.
Jesus set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice, but a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon was gone.
Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went by way of Sidon towards the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. They brought to him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him aside in private, away from the crowd, and put his fingers into his ears, and he spat and touched his tongue. Then looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And immediately his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one. But the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, He has done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. What is a word or a phrase that jumps out to you right now, Eileen?
I'm not really seeing one. Let's see.
There's so much in there.
There's so much. Um, did not want anyone to know he was there.
Okay. Um, I'm going to say Ephathatha. I don't know. Ephathatha, which is hard to
Beyond.
pronounce. And I'm saying that because it's just a really nice word. Like, it looks cool. This one. Okay. I'm going to read this again. And I will just say the region of Tyre that he goes to, and the Decapolis, these are all outside of Israel. They're all away. Um, he's encountering a Gentile here. It's like the other side of the Sea of Galilee where modern day Jordan would be, I think. Although I have to double check my geography on that. So he's away from his normal home. And because he doesn't want people to know he's there, maybe he's resting,
Mhm.
on vacation, and people still find him. So as we read it the second time, imagine he's away, he's on vacation, he's away from home, he's with people that aren't like the ones that he's normally ministering to, and he's exhausted. Okay? Jesus set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered the house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first. Not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went by way of Sidon towards the Sea of Galilee. In the region of the Decapolis, they brought him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him aside in private, away from the crowd, and put his fingers into his ears and spat and touched his tongue. Then, looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, "be opened." And immediately his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one. But the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, "He's done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak." What do you think now, Eileen?
Looking at it from him being exhausted, which I think he was many times, must have been many times. I think that I think that he snapped at the woman, and I think that her response led him to realize that it wasn't just because she was a Gentile that it was okay if she had faith. And I think when he's with the deaf man, that he wants to take him aside and be with him privately, and not have the whole energy of the crowd, screaming wildly because he had a miracle. And I wonder how hard it was to be Jesus. I wonder how hard it was to do what his father's asking him to.
That's a good question. Sorry, I've just gotten rid of the text on the screen and put it in the chat so that you can get to it, Eileen.
Thank you.
But it must have been hard to be Jesus, yes. Yeah, he seems to want privacy here, but he's not getting it.
Mm-hmm.
He's trying to get away from the crowd. He entered a house and didn't want anyone to know he was there. And then later on, they brought him a deaf man. He took him aside in private, away from the crowd. I mean, I wonder if Jesus was getting, overwhelmed by the crowd.
Mhm.
We just think of him as this miracle worker and this great speaker and everything. Had this little moment at the weekend because it was Chris and Jan's wedding blessing, and then it was regular service on Sunday, Vaughn's funeral in the afternoon. And I wasn't doing much for Chris and Jan's wedding, but it's just a thing to be there for. And then was preaching Sunday morning, was preaching Sunday afternoon for the service and for the funeral, and was realizing I had kind of reached into my resources and dug deep to find all the things I needed to find for all of that, and then was kind of wiped out.
Mhm.
And it's not like, I'm tired. It's not like it was bad. It was great. It was fine. It was nice. It was nice to be able to do those things. That was, but they cost. They take something out of you, particularly if you want to show up and be present.
Mhm.
I'm imagining what your question is asking about Jesus, that he did all these things, and I'm sure he loved them. He loved healing people, loved preaching, loved talking, loved sharing, loved affecting people's lives in a positive way. But I think it cost him.
Mhm.
And I don't think he was depressed here, so he wanted to hide. I think he was just,
Rest. He needed rest.
I need to rest.
Mhm.
And you said it, he snaps at the woman. Um, he snaps at the woman. It's not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. And he can snap from tiredness. He can snap from what some people have suggested is almost a racial slur. Well, actually a racial slur.
Mhm.
Foreign woman. He's calling her a
Mhm.
dog. Causes people all kinds of problems with their theology of the incarnation. If Jesus is the perfect Son of God, how can he possibly say this will?
Because we're wholly human as well as wholly divine.
Yeah. Well, and
And
also,
congratulations for stepping into humanity.
yeah, yeah. And also, we have various standards of politeness. Jesus was direct with people at times. This isn't the only place he said something harsh to somebody. He called some of the Jewish leaders a brood of vipers at one point. He called them hypocrites.
Mhm.
In this moment, he's not seeing, in my mind, I don't know, if we play out the rest of what we've been saying, his tiredness means that he's not able to fully connect with the humanity of this woman,
Mhm.
is what I'm wondering about, which makes me feel better because, sometimes I'm tired and I can't connect with the human needs around me. Although I want to and I try.
Mhm.
Um, but Jesus here is like, I think so tired that he can't connect with her humanity.
Mhm.
And he says something, and I don't know if you do this, but like sometimes something leaves your mouth and you're like, oh, why did I say that? And I wonder if Jesus had that moment. Oh, why did I say that?
Yeah.
It was the wrong thing to say. I'm now gonna have to work to like fix that because that was bad. Like it's just the thing that it's just what came out. But she meets him, she parries him with like even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs.
Mhm.
And somehow she punctures the moment. I think, and I've preached on this so many times, and I think so many things about this that I can't really entirely like narrow it down to one thing. Did he laugh? Was she funny?
Mhm.
He was rude. Did she parry it? Was she aggressive? Did she claim what she needed in the difficult moment? Like what is this moment? I don't, it's hard to say.
I never see her as groveling or scared. I see her to say she bowed down at his feet. Yes. And I can believe that she did that. She was on her knees but she was looking at him with, my mom look. It's like, seriously, that's where you're going to go?
Yeah.
And so I see her as confident and
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a I go to the West Wing sometimes. I've been watching it again. I know it's old now. It's an old popular cultural reference, so sorry for everybody for the oldness of that if you're watching on the podcast, but I like it. And there's this there's this episode called the Stackhouse Filibuster, where Senator Stackhouse is filibustering something. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's going to block some kind of treatment that cannot be afforded at the moment in a piece of legislation, and because of that, he's stood up to filibuster. He's going to carry on talking back when the talking filibuster was a thing, until he drops to stop the vote going through. And back in the West Wing, all of the staffers of the president are trying to like figure out what to do to like fix this, to move it on. They need this vote to go through. They're not exactly happy with the bill, but like they need it to go through. Why is Stackhouse filibustering? And eventually they find out that he's a grandfather of a child who is affected by the condition that would be blocked for being helped by this bill. And I'm probably mangling the plot now, but what comes out of it is he's a grandfather who is filibustering for something his grandson needs. And so the staff have been waiting for him to drop and give up. And at that point, the president turns around and says, he's a grandfather. He's not stopping.
Yeah. Yeah.
He's going to keep going forever. He's, find a way to help him. And we'll let the bill fail and we'll restart. We'll go over it again. And I kind of wonder that about this text as well. She's a mother, and her child is ill. She will go through anything. She knows there's someone that can help her. There's someone that can help her. He's down the street. He doesn't come to Tyre that much. She can get to him. She's going to go through, hell or high water to get to him and ask for what she needs. And she's not going to stop asking for what she needs until she gets it. So I think on my cycle, I must have been held an allergen. And it's kind of bothering me, but I hope not too much for you to follow.
No, it's fine.
But yeah, even when he's rude to her, she's not going to stop. Does that make sense? And maybe he sees that and connects with her humanity in that moment with her comment and gives her what she needs. I don't know. What do you think?
I was just thinking about, when I was a kid, at times I would ask my mom, how come we don't ever hear from Jesus? How come he doesn't talk to us? How come we don't hear from God? I was a pretty little kid at the time. And she said, he is so busy with so many other important things that he counts on us to, take care of you. And if you really have an issue, talk to him about it, but let's make it an important one. And I think that here, rather than that, I think here they're saying that Jesus is never going to be tired to hear from you. Pray for what it is that you want and need. I'm not talking about, a bracelet or something, but really those issues that are hard on our heart, health issues, survival issues, war issues, the big things that he'll never be tired to hear from you. And so here he is, he's exhausted. He just wants to be left alone. And a prayer comes in in the form of this woman, and he grants it.
Mhm.
And not to say that I think he's going to grant everything that we in our ignorance ask for, but that he's always there to talk to. He's always there for us to speak with and to be with. And I don't think that I don't think that I always believe that, and I don't think I always remember that. But this piece says, you know, this piece says, I won't ignore you.
Yeah. Mm. Are you giving Jesus too much credit?
Hmm.
Does he want to ignore her at first?
He does want to ignore her, but he doesn't eventually.
He doesn't eventually.
Yeah.
Does this say that our determination is a part of our faith journey and prayer for what we need? The Syrophoenician woman has to remain determined. She has to keep
Yes.
asking,
Yes, it does.
even though her prayer isn't answered at first.
And I've been thinking a lot about your comments at Vaughn's service,
Yeah.
and the amount of times that he asked people, have you taken the whole armor of God? And there's faith, and there's faith, and there's prayer, and there were several other things that I can't bring to mind that you said right now, but it's all right, now of course I've lost the I've lost the thread. But gosh.
It's okay. The breastplate of righteousness, the feet shod with the readiness to share the gospel of truth,
Mm-hmm.
the shield of the spirit, the sword, that the helmet of, oh, is it the helmet of truth?
There's a helmet in there.
There's a helmet of truth, I think, and there's the feet with the gospel. There's the
Mm-hmm.
breastplate of righteousness. There's the shield of the spirit, and there's the sword of the word of God. And I may have got that wrong, and somebody will tell me.
Mm-hmm. And that we have to have a vision of God, and a vision of what our faith is.
Yeah.
And here she had a strong vision
Yeah.
of what her God was and what her faith was. And she, made herself strong and went.
Yeah.
And he still may have been tired, but I think he could see that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm thinking of this in a slightly different context, Eileen, which is that this coming Sunday, we're starting the kind of period that we're calling Welcome Back. We're inviting people to invite friends and such along. And I'm like, how do I preach on this for them? This is the easiest text. But one angle on it that just occurs to me as we're talking is that we don't necessarily need to tidy this up.
Mm-hmm.
We're a community that interacts with the gospel, knowing that it has some untidy bits, knowing that we have some questions, that some of our questions won't be answered, knowing that there is something in here that's transforming and life-giving, but there's also stuff that I don't completely get.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. And the thing that I like the most about our approach to gospel, scripture, and faith is that we're prepared to have a conversation about it and say, I think this, well, I think this, well, I maybe think this, I'm not sure about that. And each of those conversations helps us grow. It's what I want to say in general, which is when you look for a new church, don't find a church where everybody agrees with you, because that's boring.
Mm-hmm.
Find a church where they're having a great conversation about God and join in
Mhm.
and be a part of it, because that's interesting.
Mhm.
And in the conversation, sometimes the blind see, the mute speak, the deaf hear. Sometimes something is made real to us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've had that experience several times.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Second half is interesting, where he takes the person who is deaf and mute aside and says, Ephathatha, be opened. And his ears were open and his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. I mean, that's complicated, because my modern understanding of deafness and like muteness, or not being able to speak because of a speech impediment, is often that you develop a speech impediment because you can't hear. And so you learn to speak in a certain way. And it might not be that your speaking becomes instantly free the moment you can hear. And so I'm kind of deconstructing that miracle just because I'm sitting here and that's what I'm doing. But I also want to hear Jesus like say, what do you need? Let's step aside.
Mhm.
Your ears are closed up. Okay. Be open. And then for me to be able to step into whatever that is, that opening up for me, of my heart, of my life, of my hearing, of my vision of God. I want to be invited into that.
Mhm. And it's a common phrase in our culture. Well, come on, let's be open to it.
Mhm.
Let's listen to me. Let's talk about it. Maybe it's something new. Do you want to try it? Um, it's in that way. I think it's very interesting. Be open. And I was sitting here thinking, oh, that might be a great meditation
Mhm.
mantra.
Be open.
And be open. Yeah.
Or Ephaphata.
Yeah.
Ephaphata.
F.
Ephaphata. Ephaphata. Be opened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll remember be opened.
I like that. I like the spin that you put on it as well, because like in a conversation we might be having with new members of the community or people returning, it's like there are lots of reasons to not join in here, but just be open to it. Like go with it for a bit, see what it's like.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like that. Mm.
And maybe you have to try it a couple of times.
Maybe you have to try it a couple of times before you know for sure that it's for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Then everyone at the end said he's done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. And he was trying to keep it secret the whole time. He was trying to not have anybody see what he was doing. The more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. In some ways, just doing what he's doing, just living his life, being who he is, trying to help people and be present with them, take them aside in private and help them with their problem. Responding to this woman when he's tired on vacation and trying to rest, and she asks for what she needs, and he responds. He's just going about his life and doing what he's doing, and it's impacting people so much that they talk about him and they tell each other about him. It's remarkable just being himself. And I'm wrestling with that a little bit, because in some sense I think that's what the good news is. Something interesting has been happening around the whole welcome back thing that we've been trying to promote, which is that people have begun telling me about some of the conversations they've had with their friends or with the people that they're looking and reaching out to. And the miraculous thing is that they even just had those conversations in the first place.
Mhm.
And what that means is that there might be something happening in relation to the gospel or in relation to church life here that they don't mind talking about. In fact, they're happy to talk about. And then the second part is like hearing back what some people are saying about why they stopped going or where they are. And some people are going to want to carry on, not going, and some people are going to try it again. Some new people are going to try. And they all have questions and they're all different. Like one person has a question about faith, the other one wants to do something in relation to outreach, the other one's looking for recovery ministries. Everyone's looking for a whole variety of different things. So I think even the conversations that are happening around this idea of welcoming people into the life of the cathedral are exciting to hear about.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Um, I'm thinking that as much as I am, dedicated to welcome and contact and invitation, it's still hard for me to do.
Yeah.
And it's really you got to be open to it, and you know, be willing to have your friends, roll their eyes and say, "Ugh, I'm not talking about that again."
Yeah.
But it gets easier every time we do it, and
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, let's see what happens, shall we?
yes.
Let me read this one more time, and this time let me ask a different question, which is, what is God asking you to do now in the light of this reading, Eileen? So Jesus set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice. But a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now the woman was a Gentile of Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs. But she answered him, Sir, even the dogs under the table eat the children's crumbs. Then he said to her, for saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter. So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. Then he returned from that region of Tyre and went by way of Sidon towards the Sea of Galilee in the region of the Decapolis. They brought to him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him aside in private away from the crowd and put his fingers into his ears, and he spat and touched his tongue. And looking up to heaven, he sighed and said to him, Ephphatha, that is, be opened. And immediately his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one. But the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, He's done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak. What does God ask you to do now in the light of this reading, Eileen?
Um, it's about not being fearful and be willing to experience being willing to experience the divine, and being willing to be open to more understanding of the gospel.
Yeah. Thank you. I'm going to say what I often say, which is God is asking me to write a sermon about this. And I have some ideas. I want to really sit with the idea what I think I want to do now is to sit with the idea of this woman being determined to ask for what she needed, and even though Jesus was pushing back at her, she was still going to do it.
Mhm.
And then I want to sit with the complexity of the text and say, I'm okay with that. And I want to reflect on your idea about what does it mean to be open to this? What does that mean?
Mhm.
So let's pray. God be with you.
And also with you.
Surround us with your love, Lord. Surround us with your love even when we face moments when someone talks down to us, pushes back against our needs, or doesn't feed us in the way that we need to be fed. Help us to recognize that even in those circumstances, we're worthy of love, worthy of our needs being met. Help us to recognize that we can ask for them to be met. And to know ultimately that you're full of love and will come to us and give us all we need. Amen.
Amen. Okay.